Today, we've got we're going to hear a story, all right, and about perseverance, how to overcome adversity, and, a look to the future. Rebekah Gregory has been in the news because she and her 5-year-old son were spectators at the 2003 Boston Marathon, which we all remember the bomb exploded. She was very near the finish line when the bomb went off. She'll tell you more about it in a moment, but she was able to protect her son, some severe injuries. Today is not about what happened back then, but what she's done, what Rebekah's done with her life, and the organization, Rebekah's Angels, that we're going to hear about, the countless number of people that have been helped since that time. 2 years ago, and I just saw this online a little while ago, CBS News published her note to self, which she wrote a letter to her 10-year-old self, Rebekah, that would bring tears to your eyes. You can find it online, but that was very, very moving and very interesting to talk about the child, and what you've learned in life and what we can use to pass on to the youth so they can, be better prepared, let's say, right? But Rebekah, I'm honored to welcome you to the stage. Come on up. You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. Now, when we first came in here, we were immediately welcomed and greeted so warmly, and then sang the Pledge of Allegiance and praying before dinner. It's just, such a breath of fresh air, and I'm honored and humbled to be a part of this. My name is Rebekah Gregory, and before I really tell you about my journey and what's led me to this point, I want to start by asking you a question. How many marathoners do we have in the room today? How many people have run a marathon? Okay, have you ran the Boston Marathon by any chance? No Boston? Oh, wow, okay. How many people like to run as a form of exercise but would not call themselves really marathoners? And finally, how many people in this room would only run if someone was chasing you? Thank you. You see, this comes in very handy because in 2013, my name automatically became associated with the Boston Marathon. And all of a sudden, I'm getting these questions like, how many marathons did you do? How close were you? Did you get to cross the line? And then I immediately have to disappoint those people because I was not running in the 2013 Boston Marathon. I was on the sidelines, eating chocolate-covered pretzels, wondering why anyone would ever run 26.2 miles for fun. Now that I've greatly disappointed the marathoners in the room, the runners, that was just not me at that time, but I have great admiration and respect for people that do. In fact, I was there that day with my 5-year-old son, Noah, who you see in this picture. My friend had qualified to run. We were living in Texas at the time, and so we made the journey up to Boston. It was my 26th birthday weekend, my first time ever in Boston. And so you better believe we ate way too many cannolis. We sat on the famous Green Monster at the Red Sox game, which later I found out was a pretty big deal. And I had no idea that Patriots Day is a holiday in the city that everything shuts down for, that the Boston Marathon is actually one of the hardest marathons to qualify for. So every single person had worked so extremely hard to get to that point. And all I knew is that it was a break from work. I was exhausted and I was celebrating my birthday. We were all packed up to go home as soon as that marathon concluded on that Monday morning. We started out at the 17-mile marker, tracking our runner with an app on our phones. And I remember one particular point that I'll never forget is Noah was watching on the sidelines. He's standing on the fence, cheering and holding up his sign. And one of the runners proceeded to lose their breakfast right in front of Noah. But then they kept on running. And so Noah and I had this mother-son moment like, what's happening, Mom? And I'm like, I don't get it either, buddy. But it was an amazing day. And one of our people in our group of about 9 suggested that we make our way closer to the finish line so that we could actually see our runner cross. And now this is a fantastic idea in theory, but going to a marathon and maneuvering in 500,000 people, I was wondering, why in the world did I bring my kindergartner to this place? Nevertheless, we got down to the finish line. We were so close that we could see the sweat pouring off the runners' faces and these smiles that stretched from ear to ear as each one crossed. It was incredible. The atmosphere was contagious. However, there are only so many runners before a 5-year-old gets a little bit bored. And all of a sudden, he's tugging on my clothes. Mom, I'm so bored, Mom. What am I gonna do? Mom, when are we gonna leave? How much longer? And I'm looking around, and we're being honest today, because that's what this is about. I was a little bored too. And I was just thinking to myself, I wanna see our runner cross. I don't know how much longer we're gonna be here. So I said, buddy, why don't you sit down on my feet and play in the rocks like you're a scientist? Now, there were no rocks, but to a 5-year-old, that was a cool thing to do. And so Noah took his place at my feet with his back up against my shins, and that's exactly where my little boy was when a bomb in a backpack went off less than 3 feet behind us. I still get chills because this may be 12 years ago, but it's a part of every single day of my life since. In a matter of minutes, everything I knew was blown away on a sidewalk that I had never been to, in a city I had never visited, and all of a sudden, everything was different. But because of that decision, that last-minute decision, Noah was able to sit on my feet, and my body was able to shield him from the worst of the blast. I took everything in the back of the legs, the torso, and the left hand. And standing here before you today, I've had 76 operations and counting. And I lost my left leg below the knee, but my son, my baby, walked away. He is now 17 years old. He had a cut on his leg that was able to be stitched up. He had a piece of shrapnel graze the back of his head. But that same 5-year-old is now 6'3" and about to attend FAU this fall. When I go and I speak all over the world now, which is such a gift and something I never thought I would be doing when I got a C+ in public speaking in college, because I never attended the class. But, for 26 years of my life, I expected to just get out of bed and put 2 feet on the ground and go about my day. And that typically meant hitting the snooze button about 13 different times because I was always running late and rushing around. And I didn't understand fully that until I could no longer do that simple act that we do every single morning, that now every moment is so calculated and I have to physically reach for a prosthetic leg or reach for a wheelchair to be able to continue on with my life. I didn't understand how much of every day I was taking for granted. I always say that the majority of us will never get blown up by a bomb in a marathon, but every single person in this room knows what it's like to have life blow up in your face. And then you're like I was in this picture when I was waking up from a medically induced coma with Boston police officers, the FBI, all of these different strangers coming in, telling me the worst news that I have ever heard in my entire life. That my son and I are now considered victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, one of the largest terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. And they didn't know if I was going to be able to keep my legs or my hand, and that it was going to take a very long time to piece me back together. That's not exactly what you want to hear after your 26th birthday celebration in Boston. But I had a choice, and I believe this is where we all have this choice. We either get up in the morning and we count our blessings, or we count our problems. And there was a tremendous pull for me to be so scared, so fearful of what was going to happen, but so grateful to be alive just to see it. And the minute that I started doubting myself or worrying about the future, my son, my 5-year-old little boy, came in that was taken to a completely different hospital, because when they got us off the street, no one knew that we were together. And so he was at a different hospital in Boston, and I was. And somehow our family pieced that together. And by the time I'm waking up from a medically induced coma, my son is already coming to visit me. There are so many miracles, so many blessings in my story. And while the majority of us won't have this extreme thing where you're on Google for the rest of your life, oh my goodness, the fact is that trauma happens every day of our lives. And I can sit here and I can talk about the physical. I can tell you how hard on my family, how hard on myself 76 operations are. I can tell you how difficult that it is to know that another operation is just looming around the corner because of the amount of shrapnel and the amount of damage that one bomb has caused. But it is nothing compared to the emotional journey. It is nothing compared to laying on a pavement fighting for every breath that you have, looking around and seeing your left leg on fire, body parts all over the ground next to you not attached to the people that they came with, nails and ball bearings and BBs and everything these brothers packed into these pressure cooker bombs. It was a war scene. It was a day that I truly thought I was not going to make it. But the thing that I've learned about tragedy, about evil, is that there's always good in them. That day, I certainly saw evil for what it was, but I also saw humanity at its very finest. The people that rushed in to save us, not knowing if a third or fourth bomb was getting ready to go off, just knowing they wanted to help innocent strangers off the street like me. They are the reason that even though I had 2 minutes left to live, I was able to get into a nearby trauma hospital. They're the reason that I'm standing here. And, I can tell you what a journey it's been to testify in the trial of the remaining bomber, to go back to Boston as a marathoner this time, to learn how to walk with a prosthetic leg, etc., etc. But what was most important to me is, how do I explain to my son that he was involved in a terrorist attack? How do we heal from this? And I'll never forget, after 56 days of being in the hospital, I was wheeled into my parents' house because I could no longer live by myself with my son. I was a single mom at the time, and I don't know if you heard that correctly. I had to go back to my parents' house, move in with them at 27 years old. That was a doozy. I'm so thankful for them. But my mom wheeled me into the wheelchair, and my son came up to me, and he hugged me as tight as he possibly could, and he said, "Don't worry, Mom, we're never leaving this house again." And it's sweet, right? It's innocent, it's pure. But there was so much sadness attached to that as well. For me, I understood something that really hit me hard that day. My son lost his innocence on Boylston Street. He lost the ability to just be a 5-year-old kindergartner, because very quickly after that, he started having the side effects and the signs of what trauma is, what PTSD looks like in a child. And he didn't want to go back to school. He didn't want to interact with the public. He didn't even want to get on his bike. And so I frantically started Googling, what does this look like? And it led me to my own therapy appointment when I sat down with a therapist, and a trauma therapist specifically, and she said, "Rebekah, in order for us to really work through this, you're gonna have to let me in on your childhood." And I said, "Oh man." I was like, I can't do that. I'm here to talk about the bombing. I'm here to heal from this. And she said, "Yes, But in order to do that, we have to go back to little Rebekah. And Mike mentioned that they did a piece on Letter to My Younger Self. And in order for me to really tell my story, it does start back with little Rebekah. Because from the time that I was able to remember anything, I was very, very abused by my biological father. And one of my first memories was actually watching him try to kill my mom right in front of me. And I ended up having to hop a fence to my neighbor's house to try and call 911. You know, those are the places we don't want to go back to. Those are the things that we don't want to have to heal from. But that is our society. There are 60% of children that will experience an adverse trauma before they're 16 years old. There are so many people in this world and in this room, if we did a show of hands, which we won't, but how many people in here have childhoods just like mine? Who you were forced to see and be exposed to things far too early in life that you never should have been. And while I'm trying to figure out what this has to do with my child being healed and how we move forward now, what I was realizing is how much it ties into every decision, every feeling, every thought that I have had since I was a little girl up until the age that I am now. And, you know, it was interesting because while I was looking into this healing and doing the hard work, doing the really hard work for me and also getting my son into therapy, I was seeing how many families were struggling with the same things in life and not being afforded the same kind of opportunities that Noah and I were because it was so public. Everyone wanted to help us. There were millions of people reaching out. The finest psychologists and therapists all over the world, they offered us these trips and everything that possibly could to heal. And that is just not the case for a normal family that doesn't have that public exposure. And so I didn't know what God was laying on my heart at the time, but I knew that if we were to be able to get to a place where we could give back, this is really, it was on my heart to do that. And in 2018, Rebekah's Angels was established for that purpose. We have now provided over 700 families access and support for funding for mental health support. And we are so honored to do that. It started out as just paying for trauma therapy, and we recently received a grant that we now have a van. It's called our Mood Van. You guys are going to see it around town. And it's just uplifting support to be able to go to the hospitals and the first responders and all of the different places and just give that extra uplifting kindness to. Now, I say that I am what little Rebekah needed all those years ago for so many other people, but it's a humbling feeling to be able to sit down with a family and be able to talk with them and say, I don't know what your rock bottom is, but I know what it's like to be at my own. And I can relate to you when you don't feel like you can get out of bed in the morning. I've been there. But in order for us to be able to be in our valleys and get to our mountaintops, we can't do that alone. And it's so much of an honor to just be able to speak with you guys today because our journey to even Bradenton is so wild. We thought we were going to be here for 12 weeks. My husband had a sales training down here, and we ended up now being here for a couple of years and just recently bought a house in July in Bradenton. So we're here to stay, and that means that we really want to integrate ourselves more into the community, do more things like this, and be able to really respond to families in our backyard because it's so, so important. I want to, if it's okay, Mike, I want to take the last couple of minutes that I have and just if anyone has questions, I think that might be the best use of time. Yeah. Does anybody have questions? Or I could talk a lot. I mean, yes.
Can you share a story that you've experienced lately with any other families that you've helped?
Yes, actually, I believe it's the next slide. So this is the story of Lexi. When I was in the hospital recovering from my 76th surgery, which was about a year and a half ago, I met Lexi, and unfortunately she was in a terrible accident and she lost both of her legs below the knee. or one above, below, one below. And she was just in so much pain, but emotionally, she didn't feel like she could continue on anymore. Lexi was at a very, very low place in her life. Unfortunately, she also had a lot of childhood trauma as well. And that's one of the links that we found, is that there's so many people that have childhood trauma, and then they go on and experience many other traumas throughout their life because of that initial upbringing. And so Lexi had a lot to heal from, both physically and mentally. But I'm proud to say that Lexi, we not only funded therapy for her, but we were able to help her with her prosthetics and her stay at a place in Orlando where she gets her legs made. We were able to help her with her accommodations. And she is now just finished her esthetician license, and she is doing wonderful. So now she is advocating, and she's a big believer in Rebekah's Angels, and she wants to do more with us too. So that's one example. We started out focusing specifically on children, but we very quickly learned that you can't heal a child without healing the whole family, because if you take a child out of a situation and you provide therapy and you provide all of these different tools, it's only going to be as helpful as the people around them. So now we're really focusing on the education piece too, going into schools and educating about trauma and about different red flags and ways to handle things. I work with another nonprofit called Hands Across the Bay, 3 days a week in Clearwater, to help their program. And we do a lot with domestic violence and trafficking. And we also provide all of the trauma therapy for the families that come into their donation center. So one of our things is really just partnering with other organizations. How can we help? And also we're able to give grants out for other people doing great work too with children and families. So we have a website, it's rebekahsangels.org, and we work with different therapy providers all over Florida. We would love if you had any providers in mind in the Bradenton area. If you guys could connect me, that would be wonderful. We work with a number of people already too. And either our therapist will give us referrals that they already know and they just, the family can't afford therapy, or we have an application process on our website where someone sends in an application, and then our advisory board that's made up of therapists and psychologists will approve it, and then we will find a therapy local to them and provide the funding for it. I know this was a lot of information, so thank you very much. Yes.
Rebekah, thank you so much. What a story, and what resilience, and congratulations for everything that you're doing. We will present you with a Kiwanis golden ruler.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
To measure the future success of Rebekah's Angels. Do we get a picture right over here? All right, thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
Rebekah, thank you so much.
Thank you
All
so
right?
much. Thank you.
And behind every great organization, it needs a great executive director. Tiffany, you as well. Thank you for being here today. I know, Tiffany, you're up in Valrico, but Rebekah, you're right here local. You need to be a part of Bradenton Kiwanis. We need to talk about that, all right? For sure. Please join us next week. We're going to have representatives from Miss Manatee Scholarship Organization. We're going to have President Wendy Mangillo tell us, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, telling us about that. And the 2025 Miss Manatee County will be here, and Miss Manatee Fair will be presenting as well. So should be fun. Those of you not on vacation, please be here next week. All right. From the presentation today, I think back to some of my sales trainers, like some mentors that I've had, before, and the mantra or saying comes up: if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. Either way. And I thought of that quite a bit when Rebekah was talking today. Thank you all for being here today. Go forth and do great things this week.